Like matching.
I know. Cute.
This is cute. Matchy.
Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Blood Red Agenda. I'm your host today, Connor Dunn, and I'm joined by Caoimhe O'Neill, who I texted this morning to make sure that we were both wearing exactly the same jumper for this. Caoimhe, how are you doing?
I'm good. I've broken it off, haven't I, with a little bit of a polka dot scarf, but yeah, I'm glad we're matchy.
Had to add something. Well, this is almost the colour of, I love a segue, of a certain team called Borussia Dortmund, and we're here today to talk about Jadon, Sancho and Timo Werner, which we'll come on to in a minute. I know that you've written a piece about Sancho. We're going to kind of discuss what you think of the links, if it's even going to be possible, and, your thoughts about Sancho, really.
Yeah, well, obviously he's been quite heavily linked today, hasn't he, with a move to Liverpool, and I think, first and foremost, of course, he's going to be linked with a move to Liverpool. Liverpool are currently the best team on the planet, so the best players are going to be linked with a move to Liverpool. I think that's how it works. It's sort of like sticking anything to a board, isn't it? You're just going to say Sancho, Liverpool. That kind of rings a little bell. Yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, Klopp's got his Borussia Dortmund connection, and Sancho is famed for a return to England. So what place better than Anfield? Home of the European world champions and soon to be, we hope, Premier League champions. So it kind of all makes sense from that point of view. But you feel that if Sancho was to make the move to indeed Liverpool, it would have to be at a cost of losing maybe Firmino, Mane or Salah, because Liverpool are quite precise in how they work in the transfer window. They're not going to splash the cash on anyone that they don't deem fit who's going to be coming in. And you think if Sancho was coming in with them three players there, he would be on the bench or would he be starting? Then that creates that whole dynamic, which is a bit of an uncomfortable one almost, even though you want the best players and you want as many of them, but you still want it to be so balanced and finely poised as it is at this minute. So, I think it is a tricky one with a lot of issues, but obviously, I think the main thing to take from it is Liverpool are going to be linked with a lot of great players, and these players are going to be watched by everyone. It's not just the top clubs keeping their eyes on them, is there?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's no doubt he's an absolute talent. I think 15 goals, 17 assists in his last 29 games for Dortmund, which is really impressive, playing the German top flight, playing the Champions League. So getting decent returns and decent numbers and, clearly a top player. But as you say, he's probably likely to cost more than £100 million. And although he might be moving on this summer, I just don't think Liverpool are going to be paying that, are they?
Liverpool aren't going to want to lose the front three, are they, really? And I think that it would be that sort of sacrifice. You don't know what happens in the summer. Things change on a knife edge, transfers, we know that. But it just feels like, he is such a top talent. And, them numbers are ridiculous for a 19-year-old kid who was sort of went to Germany to sort of salvage his young career, because obviously he hadn't sort of came through at Man City. He goes over there and then now he's, an England international, pretty much placed to dominate for the next 10 years. So, as I say, there's no surprise to see Liverpool linked, but it just doesn't feel quite like it would happen because of all the things that go with it. You think that it's as simple as just paying 100 million for a player, but then it's wage demands and stuff like that. Not saying Sancho will come in and want a demand, but if you're paying 100 million, you'd think he would become the top earner, so that sort of would wreak a little bit of havoc, you'd think. But there's just so many issues sort of surrounding it. But if Liverpool won him, I'm sure they would go out and completely just get him, because they've got that sort of upper hand now, being in such a a strong position in the league and in world football.
Yeah, I think an important thing to note, and particularly when regarding the front three, and this is why these big players are being linked, Salah could miss the start of the season going to the Olympic Games, and he could also miss parts of January because of the AFCON, as could Mane. So there's going to be parts of next season where Salah and Mane are definitely missing in January of the AFCON, and Salah could also be missing in the start of the season as well. And I guess that will play a little bit on Klopp's mind, because he's going to need some replacements for those two.
Yeah, I think that would force your hand a little bit, but as we've saw in the past, he's not a manager to let his hand be forced, is he? I think the rotation he's done this season has been incredible. To think Liverpool now are only coming into a sort of a a time when all the players are finally fit, barring I think Shaqiri is just about to return. You know, we haven't had that all season, and Klopp's managed it so well, losing Fabinho before that mad December run. Everything's just been managed so greatly. So I think, you know, it would be a concern losing them players for that amount of time, but is it enough to force his hand? I don't know. But then that sort of leads you into thinking maybe then Timo Werner is more of an option, because I feel like, you know, he's scored an incredible, I think it's like 20 goals in 21 games.
Exactly, yeah, 21 league games, 20 goals in 21 league games alone, so that's very impressive.
Ridiculous. So again, maybe a player like that, I think there's a reported release clause in his contract, which is 51 million, you know, that's not so, you know, high, is it, to have to maybe, you know, sell another player or something like that. I think maybe would he fit in a bit better? He wouldn't, but then them numbers demand starts, don't they? So then it's a whole other issue. But maybe a player like that coming in, and then, you know, he would then be, you think, the future of Liverpool's attack, as indeed would Sancho.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. He seems like a more realistic target just because of that reported release clause. I mean, it was, I think, German newspaper Bild who were reporting the release clause today, that it's between 50 and 55 million, but it runs out in April, so Liverpool would have to get any deal done with Leipzig if this reported clause is true before April, which again kind of forces your hand a little bit, which you've not seen. And I think as well, it's probably quite important to note that, you know, they bought Minamino in January. He could become a player. Keita is there, because Caoimhe is there, can play in that front three. Yeah. It's not like Liverpool are totally devoid of options if Mane and Salah go, because obviously Origi's there as well. So it's a little bit of something to consider. But could you see Werner happening a little bit more?
I think it feels more likely, doesn't it? It feels like the next step in his career. I think Sancho's kind of, he could still, you know, almost stay at Dortmund, but it looks like he might leave. But it just feels like Werner's, his name's been bandied about a little bit for a while, hasn't it? And especially links with Liverpool. Feels like that could be his next step. Obviously, Klopp, I think, you know, people would be interested in signing him, especially Liverpool. He looks to be an incredible talent. It's just, it comes down to that sort of how it works then. But, you know, with Origi not long ago signing a new contract, and he's a player who's happy to sort of be the backup. You know, obviously behind the scenes he might want to, like any player, he'd want to play more, but you just feel like maybe a player like Werner, I think, would demand. He used to be star man at the moment, isn't he? So that makes that whole thing tricky. But, you know, it's just, I think that's the difficulty with Liverpool being so good right now and having such a good team. Even the great players that we're being linked with, it's kind of like you can see it happening, but you can't as well. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah, for sure. If not those two specifically, can you see Liverpool doing some business this summer?
You'd think, because they didn't really do much last year, that they might need to, but as Klopp said I think it was late on in the window, in the summer window, he said, you know, we don't really need to. This group are at the prime now, they're at the position we want to sort of go and see what we can achieve, and by any means it looks like they're going to achieve something absolutely phenomenal. So whether he'll think, you know, one or two, maybe a full-back to come in, but then, you know, you've got young players there, I think, who you want to get into that mould. We know Trent Alexander-Arnold was brought into the team as a teenager, and you see Nico Williams now there or thereabouts, Curtis Jones. You think, you know, the Liverpool have to look around when they've got such, you know, good young players coming in who can take up their minutes, I think. But obviously if Shaqiri leaves, say, Lallana, then it does sort of make you think maybe Liverpool will look to move. And obviously I think that's what will force the hand if players move. But I think going forward, I think fans want to see people sign, don't they? Because it's, you know, other than winning games, it's what you want to see.
Exactly.
But I don't think Liverpool need to necessarily sign anyone. They signed Minamino in January. They didn't necessarily need him, but, you know, he's one for the future now, one for the next few seasons. And I think, you know, it's sort of going to be a similar thing. If these are at the, you know, 26, 27, 28, the peak times in the career, and I think, you know, this next season we'll be able to get that out of them. But then obviously exits, departures will, I think, make a difference, won't they?
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's important to note about Williams and Jones that they could be two young players who save Liverpool a lot of money in the transfer market, because they look really talented and they look like they could come in. So we'll see how they get on, obviously, as probably next season progresses, really, or maybe even the end of this season if the Premier League title is all wrapped up and done. But I think probably the take-home message in terms of Sancho, tell me if you disagree, but I just don't think it's going to happen purely due to the amount of money he would cost and the probably expectation he would arrive with.
Yeah, I think so. That puts a lot of pressure on a player, doesn't it? Obviously, we've seen Liverpool break the record for Van Dijk, for Alisson. You know, when they want a player to play a specific position, they will do that. It just doesn't feel like they necessarily need Sancho. You know, where that was getting a centre-half and getting a goalkeeper was absolutely paramount, wasn't it? They've done that. And those players have seamlessly just played, you know, they're world-class. Alisson's the best goalkeeper in the world. Van Dijk's the best defender in the world, if not best player in the world, which is, you know, remarkable. But then, you know, Sancho or Werner or, you know, anyone sort of linked with Liverpool, they'd have to come in and sort of do the same thing. And it is as Van Dijk and Alisson have made it look so easy, but it's an incredibly hard task to make this Liverpool team better. Obviously, the defence wasn't great, so they've improved that. But the attacking line is, you know, it's the best in Europe, best in the world. So it's such a difficult task for anyone coming in, isn't it? And, you know, I think that's why it makes this such a question.
Yeah, certainly. And again, the point about Werner is he's a more realistic target in terms of what he could cost. But is he going to come with the expectation that he needs to be starting every week? And how do you temper that if you're Klopp and you're happy with Origi who sits on the bench?
Yeah, I think that's why it is so sort of difficult to sort of look at it like that, because you think, you know, he's not going to be happy, is he, to sit and not play games when he's scored in every game for Leipzig. It's, you know, he's coming to the Premier League, he wants to play every minute of every game, like, you know, our players do now. So to be out cold, you know, on the sidelines watching the others, I don't think that's an exciting proposition for anyone. Although, you know, it's playing for Liverpool.
You're going to be playing in the biggest game.
And you're going to be fighting against you know, for these starting positions. So, you know, it would be an amazing thing for Liverpool to have that problem, but I think it might disrupt this
perfect harmony.
Yeah, because everything just right now for Liverpool Football Club has just aligned. It's come together. I don't think you just don't want to mess with that right now, do you? They're just on an upward trajectory, and, you know,
particularly when, as you said, these players have been coming in to replace Salah, Mane, Firmino, who are still at their peak, still absolutely firing like world-class numbers. Why would you want to disrupt them? And
why would you want them to leave, you know?
That's it. Yeah, well, it's certainly an interesting prospect, and maybe not Sancho, maybe Werner, we will see. I think Liverpool probably will do some business this summer, so I think they might have to keep up and keep their world-class imperious position. But watch this space and we will see what happens. Thank you very much.